baby. Welcome to Get Down MMA. We'll be discussing all things MMA throughout this channel, from the premier organization, the UFC, Bellator, Professional Fighters League, PFL, ONE FC, not Invicta because I do like to take a good shit during a WMMA fight. So pretty much everything to do with MMA. We'll be discussing matchmaking, how fighters can progress forward if they've come off a loss. So, for example, Tai Tuivasa, who's on a ridiculous skid now after being one of the top guys in the division, losing to unfinished haircut Marcin Tybura, and how he needs to improve on his wrestling. So, for example, rather than training at Western Sydney Plus Fitness, Tai needs to get his ass over to Dagestan, grow out his chin strap, throw on a Islamic hat, and start grappling with some sweaty Russians. You've read the title of today's video. We'll be discussing and breaking down what was UFC 300. And holy Christ, what a card it was. From, the opening fight between Cody Garbrandt and Deiveson Figueiredo, two former world champions, to the final fight between Alex Pereira and Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill, where Jamal threw a teep kick to the cock, which Pereira beautifully countered with his steel cup, which do provide more leverage, in the words of Joe Rogan, to ultimately hit him with the left hook of doom. Let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad you're here for this journey. I've always wanted to make a YouTube channel, and yeah, this is an appropriate time to do so. I'd really appreciate it if you guys subscribed, because that'll just motivate me to make more videos, and I really do like making these type of videos. And yeah, with that being said, let's get straight into it. Also, first and foremost, I'd just like to apologize about the quality of my mic. I know it's not the best. I do have a microphone. I don't know where it is as of right now. That will be sorted, whether I buy a new one or I do find my old one. The audio quality will be better. Early prelim times, baby boy. Let's get into it. As previously mentioned, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Honestly, I thought Cody was kind of piecing him up on the feet. I'd also just firstly like to establish that this was most definitely a fight booked for Cody, not Figgy. Because Cody came off the win to Brian Kelleher and Trevin Jones, snooze fest. And this was about building up his prestige once again. Like I said, he's a former world champion. He's been in there with some of the best. Breakdanced on Dominic Cruz. Then he got knocked out by my favorite fighter of all time, the bantamweight GOAT himself, TJ Dillashaw, the Natty King TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, but it was very smart of Deiveson to take him to the ground, submit him, because that's really where he's going to be able to excel from everybody else in bantamweight, I think. Especially in today's day and age, where Aljamain has left the division. We have guys like Petr Yan, and even Corey Sandhagen to an extent, who are breaking that hump over into the territory of Sugar Sean, that are quite fundamental on the ground. But I think Figgy, from what we've seen at flyweight, is just that step better. I mean, what he did to Joseph Benavidez is an indication of that. He choked him out like Megan O'Leary does in the bedroom, because we all know she's a dominatrix. And yeah, no, I think it was a perfect way to start the card. I'm sorry for all you Cody crybabies out there, but I think it was pretty obvious. I had Figgy going into this one, and we were one step at the parlay, baby. So, off to a great start. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. Now, this one, whilst I did have Bobby Green because I'm not an idiot, this one was a little bit sadder because it's obviously Jim Miller. He's fought on UFC 100, 200, and most recently, of course, 300. And he came out of the gate strong. I was watching it with my buddies. And Jim Miller looked good to start off with, and then Bobby Green just started piecing him up with his hood style. And it was pretty much wraps from there. I've heard Jim Miller isn't going to retire either, so from the bottom of my heart, and I'm speaking on behalf of every single MMA guy that's ever existed. Jim, please, uh, before you become some kind of Tony Ferguson, please retire. I know you're still older than Tony Ferguson is, and there's all that stuff, and you were building up a win streak. But like even then, you were fighting Gabriel Benitez and Nicholas Motta. Like, who are those guys against a guy like Bobby Green, who's a legitimate ranked guy, regardless of his most recent loss, which was Jesus bad. He's a legitimate ranked guy. You should be taking it slowly. You don't necessarily need all these big name fights anymore. You're gonna be a Hall of Famer. Park the bus. Stop going full thrust. Pause. And loosen up a little. Take a couple months off. Maybe even a year off. If Paul Felder wants to fight again, fight Paul Felder. Paul Felder's probably going to beat you too. But please, consider retirement. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, next fight, the women's strawweight bout between Jessica Andrade and Marina Rodriguez. I just want to clarify that this was the best 15-minute nap of my life. I'm so thankful for UFC 300 putting this on, because this card in Australia started at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is early. It's pretty early, so I was thankful I got a 15-minute power nap in there. Jokes aside, Jessica Andrade actually looked quite decent. She might... I don't know if she's next in line for a title. I'd probably say to give her now Yan Xiaonan, which would be, again, an intriguing matchup. I'm not too sure about Marina Rodriguez, to be honest, because she went on that crazy surge and pretty much beat everyone in the division. So, yeah, maybe take some time off, see what happens wins and loss-wise with everybody else. I don't think you need to go back to the fundamentals and the drawing board, because you're taking a former champion, to decision, and you look pretty decent. But I would say just take some time off, because let the division play out, because you are a top fighter in your division. But it just so happens that there are better fighters. You know what I mean? The Virna Jandiroba loss recently as well that Marina suffered. It's an indication that there are better fighters, and Marina isn't young either. She's what, 36 years old. So, well, yeah, I mean, still, that's not exactly old, but, it's not young either. But, no, in all seriousness, again, this fight did have me like old man Volk at the Poirier press conference. On to the next one. Last bout of the early prelims. Renato Moicano Carneiro got the win against Jalen Daddy Longlegs Turner. And I'm a big fan of both of these guys, so I didn't really care who won, to be honest. But it was a very interesting performance from Renato. Yeah. He looked good in parts, and then he put it all together and came over Turner. Whoa, pause. Came strong, pause, against Turner when it mattered. I don't think Turner looked that bad either, to be honest. Both of these guys have built up quite the resume now. I'd love to see Renato start taking some chances against some higher ranked guys at lightweight. I honestly say after Benoit suffered the knockout loss to Poirier, give Benoit Moicano. Obviously a loss against, he fought Matt Frivola before he fought Dustin Poirier, and Matt Frivola is not the diamond. Let's make ourselves very clear, Let me be clear. They're not the same kind of fighter. There's levels. So I'd love to see Renato Carneiro Moicano break those levels and come up, beat Benoit, start fighting some top-ranked guys again. Maybe book him against Fiziev when Fiziev fully heals. Maybe even Dan Hooker, who beat Jalen Turner. Dan Hooker's not fully healed yet either because of his broken arm. But test the waters a bit. You don't need to fight straight away. I know you want money, you greedy bastard, but test the waters a bit. See how everything plays out like Marina Rodriguez, but the difference being is you're going to progress, Moicano. So hold off. You're going to be a top guy because everybody loves you. You're good on the mic. You can fight, and you're a funny guy. So take your time. Take it slow. Your record's now 19-5, which is very, very impressive. You have some top... Like, a guy like Drew Dober. Beating a guy like Drew Dober is no joke win. So you've obviously got it together, but it's whether you can crack that top caliber lightweight type of level. So, throw a Fazeev out there. Get a win against Benoit, who can prove he can stand with a lightweight guy. And whilst he got chinned, he still has the balls to do it. So book him against a guy like that, and if he wins, great. It's perfect for the UFC because he's marketable. So keep pushing him. I didn't mention Jalen Turner's horrid attempt for the walk-off KO. Why would he do that? Moicano clearly wasn't out, and Turner was looking at Herb Dean like, "Hey man, when are you gonna start this fight? When are you gonna stop this fight?" When he's out, he's not out. Jalen, you daft bastard. You just stop acting slick, broski. You ain't slick. You're not Sugar Sean. You're not Alex Behera. You're not Israel Adesanya. You're not that guy. Alright, mid-card prelim time, and we started with a banger in the featherweight division between Sadiq, Youssef, and the Chad, the man himself, Diego Lopez, who, might I add, has serious aura. Obviously coming off the 90-second Pat Sabatini knockout. This guy's beloved in the MMA world. He's always game. He's always willing to step up. And this was his first real step-up fight into the rankings. And God, did he put on a show. Early finish. Sadiq looked like he wanted to end it all after that. He had a huge welt on his left eye as well. And it just shows, like, Diego Lopez can do it, man. And I'm really, really happy for the guy. He's a class act. He's a great fighter, obviously. And I'd love to see him fight Giga Chikadze next. I think that'd feed families. Yeah, sorry, my audio cut off, but this fight would sell houses, to be honest. It's a crazy fight on paper. Giga obviously can realistically do it all in the octagon. He is, in my opinion, still a top guy at featherweight, regardless of the loss to Calvin Kattar. It's he's still got a lot to prove. He's 35 years old, and he's got a monster kick. But I guess the thing is with Diego Lopez, like I said before with Sadiq Youssef, he's surging. He's the next big thing realistically in the UFC because he's got all the fundamentals you need. Everybody loves him because he's ballsy, he has knockout power, and he's a legitimate problem at featherweight. I'd love to see this on a crowded not a crowded Apex card, sorry, a crowded Fight Night card, similar to what we had with Atlantic City. Yeah, no, honestly, this would be a potential fight of the year. And it honestly has a lot at stake for both of these guys. For Giga, if he was to get a win over a guy like Diego Lopez, not only would it put a stop to his hype train, but it'd also build up Giga's, legacy, I guess, once more. Because it has been a little bit off in recent times. But obviously for Diego Lopez, for him to get a win over a guy like Giga Chikadze, it'd be massive. Like, there is so much at stake for Diego Lopez there. And honestly, if Edson Barboza is to get the win over Lerone Murphy, which I think he will, put the winner of that fight against Edson Barboza, my glorious king Edson Barboza. But let's face it, guys, Edson Barboza is a mythical fighter. He chins either one of these guys, or maybe both of these guys at once. So I shouldn't get too ahead of myself. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is for that one. The next fight of the prelims, though, guys, was obviously Kayla Brock Lesnar Harrison versus Holm. If I was Kayla now, to be honest, I'd be asking for a title shot straight away. I think she's built up enough of a hype train outside of the UFC to do that. Well, who else is there at bantamweight as well? There's, I guess, Mayra Bueno Silva, who's coming off the loss to Pennington for the title. But, you know what? We don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that Kayla Harrison's going to beat the absolute holy shit out of Mayra Bueno Silva. She probably does the same. I mean, she definitely does the same thing to Pennington as well. Kayla Harrison will be a UFC champion in the next at least 3 years. Probably at most 3 years, to be honest. She's 33 years old, which is still pretty young. Whether or not you want to call it, she was fighting the oldest fighter on the card, Holly Holm. Holly Holm is dog shit now. Whatever. She dismantled a former champion of the world. She can rightfully call for a title, in my opinion, as the women's bantamweight division kind of lays dormant. without Amanda Nunes. So go for it, Kayla. Do your thing, girl or guy, whatever pronouns you go by. Trapzilla, Hulk Smash. Yeah, win that belt, get that gold. Sediment yourself as one of the greatest WMMA fighters of all time. Give me a reason not to take a shit during your fights, right? And then I'll have respect. When I think of Kayla Harrison as well, I think of those brutal Invicta ground and pound elbows. And I honestly think that could translate to the UFC as well. We saw it with Holly Holm with the sub, but her physicality is definitely going to be something to watch. If I was Holly Holm, however, I'd just hang it up. There's no point of fighting anymore unless you really want to meet a rematch against Misha Tate, which again, there's nothing on the line except for legacy. Neither of you guys are going to get close to a belt again. Look, your last win was against Yana Kunitskaya, or Yana Santos now, which is like, okay, that doesn't really hold up very well, and that was last year. There's nothing left for you. I'm sorry. Call it a day. We love you. You'll probably be a Hall of Famer because of your Rousey knockout. Maybe, I don't know. If you want to go back and have like a charity boxing fight, please go ahead. Just not in the UFC. I don't want to see you get hurt by top fighters anymore. And I know you only want to fight top fighters, but it doesn't translate. So please consider calling it a day like Jim Miller. Featherweight matchup next, guys. Aljamain Sterling, Algislame versus Calvin, the Boston finisher, Kayla. Aljo looked fantastic in this fight. You can call him a wet blanket, call him a loser all you want. I'm not a fan of Aljamain Sterling, but I genuinely think he will be a prolific problem at featherweight. Obviously, you got guys like Ilia Topuria running the division right now, and obviously Volk and Max Holloway after that Gaethje knockout. But I honestly could see Aljamain falling into that bracket later down the track. If I was Aljamain Sterling, I'd honestly take a little bit of time off right now just to kind of recuperate. That was a big win over a guy like Kayla. But I'd love to see him fight a guy like Arnold Allen or Movsar Evloev. Or even, to be honest, Brian Ortega, like he said. That, again, is another fight that'd feed families. Two guys who are pretty much fundamental everywhere. Aljo's striking, I don't want to hear it. Aljo's striking is good. Brian Ortega's striking is pretty good too. Max Holloway and Volk both schooled him on the feet, but still, I think there's just levels to this game. And to be honest, Aljo can show that there's levels. He's a former bantamweight champion of the world. He beat Piotr Yan in the rematch, silenced a lot of the doubters. You know, I'm not going to talk about that TJ Dillashaw TKO because TJ is my favorite actual human being fighter of all time. Edson Barboza doesn't count because he's a god amongst men. But yeah, no, Aljo silenced a lot of hate there. I think if he was to come in and fight a guy like Brian Ortega, he'd gain a lot of credibility, win or lose. I think he'd gain a lot of credibility for stepping up and fighting a guy like Ortega, who's fought for 2 titles, beaten some of the top guys, like knocked out Frankie Edgar, which was unheard of before that, right? You know, coming off a win against Yair as well. But I just think the UFC is probably going to book a fight more like, yeah, Arnold Allen or Movsar Evloev before they book the Ortega fight. Also, as well, you've got to consider with the Aljo Cater fight that Calvin Cater's takedown defense was absurd. And Aljo ragdolled him. That's what one of my close friends was saying. We watched the fight together. One of my close friends was saying, yeah, well, I think Cater's going to do it just because he's long for featherweight, he's tall, he's got great boxing, and his takedown defense is fantastic. Aljo ran through him, no problem. You can call it lay and pray, like I said, but still, who cares? He overcame the obstacle of Calvin Cater, and I think that does allow him to pass into the better part of the featherweight division. So a lot of interesting things coming up for Aljamain Sterling in the future, which I'm kind of disappointed about because I think he's a bitch. But hey, what can you do, boys? Alright. Featured prelim of the night, though. In my humble opinion, from what we saw rather of this fight, this should have gotten fight of the night. Yuri BJP Prochazka versus Alexander the Rocket Rakic. Yuri, man. Holy shit, Yuri, man. what else can I say except for wow, guys? Like, holy shit. Yeah, Yuri looked wildly impressive. In parts, he got rocked a little bit early, but he overcame the adversity, knocked out Rakic. That 1-2 combination was crispy. One of the best I've ever seen Yuri throw. He fights like he's got something wrong with him. He fights like he's sick in the head. But you know what? I think he looked a little bit more like relaxed. He looked a little bit more content. Obviously, he was circling around T-Mobile Arena the night before, and it actually makes me think whether he actually is sick in the head. He may very well be. He definitely grew up thinking he was a Jedi Knight from Star Wars, or a ninja, or a samurai, whatever. He's got, I don't know, God, but he looked great. He did. In all talk, his record's now 30-4 and one draw, but still, 30-4 is a very, very good record to have in MMA. And if he does, if Pera does go up to heavyweight and fight either Jones or Aspinall, I think it leaves a lot of room for Yuri. Quite frankly, I can see him fighting for a belt again, whether he beats Ankalaev or not. I can see him maybe even holding the belt again. You never know, guys. But yeah, I think the fight to make is Yuri versus Ankalaev. If Pera is to go up to featherweight, to heavyweight, then yeah, book that. But I do see honestly a 50-45 wet blanket Ankalaev incoming. You never know, because I also thought the same thing. I thought it'd be 30-27 Rakic at 300. I thought Rakic would just wet blanket him, to be honest. But yeah, Yuri was able to overcome that. This was my first incorrect pick of the night, by the way, guys. I was a little bit disappointed in this. Yes, I did back Moicano over Turner as well, which was a big upset. So this is my first incorrect pick, because I genuinely just thought Rakic was going to lay and pray like he was Gelton Almeida. But alas, we got an exciting fight. Like I said, I thought this should have got fight of the night, but it was Gaethje Holloway. That Holloway knockout cannot be beaten. I'm glad Holloway still walked around with 600k plus because his actual contract earnings. We'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, no, that wraps up the preliminary card. Fantastic. Great to see Kayla Harrison in the UFC. Like I said early, Diego Lopez has serious aura. Aljamain's a problem at featherweight, and Yuri Prochazka may just be a world champion again, guys. For Rakic, though, sorry, I forgot to mention, I'd still put Rakic's name in that top 5 of the division, regardless. But I'd honestly say, give him a guy surging like Khalil Roundtree, who's just improved so much. Or maybe even Nikita Krylov. Both of those guys are surging. Like, we've obviously seen how much they can improve, so I'd love to see Alexander Rakic fight either of those guys. Alright, main card time, baby. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage, starting off with what might have been the stupidest matchup of all time. You've got to stop giving Bo Nickel cans, especially on the biggest card of all time. Oh my god. Obviously it wasn't like not the biggest card wise, yes. Not the biggest fight of all time. Biggest card, absolutely. You give Cody Brundage a main card spot against Bo Nickel. Either one of these guys could have been booked on any other card. Put him on 301. 301's a dog shit card. Yeah, this was stupid. Whether or not Bo Nickel was toying with him as well, like, he took Cody Brundage to the second round. I think it was honestly just ridiculous. What's next for Bo? God, who cares? They might just rebook the Val Woodburn fight. To be fair, the Val Woodburn, though, he was one win away from a title shot, so there's full credit with that one for Bo. They'll give him another can. I'd love to see him fight a guy like Chris Curtis or Marc-Andre Barrial. What I don't like is him calling out Anthony Hernandez, who's got a fight booked against Roman Dolidze. That's completely stupid, and I love Anthony Hernandez as well. Yeah, it's all those things with Bo that just makes him so unlikable. He's an NPC. He's got no personality. But for some reason, Dana White loves him. Like, oh my god, he's a D1 wrestler. D1, greatest of all time. Prove it, bro. He looked great against Jamie Pickett, though, to be fair. That knee to his left testicle was really well executed. But yeah, no, he's got to start proving it against legitimate guys. So give him Barriot, give him Chris Curtis maybe if he wants to get a spot at the rankings. But I just don't see Dana White doing it yet. He's gonna wait till he's like 20-0 against guys who have a combined record of like 36 wins and 36 losses before he gets a ranked guy. But again, what can you do about it? We unfortunately do not have the power to rewrite this stuff. And it sucks because I can see the trajectory in which it's going. He's going to get another can. Dana White's again going to say, how good is that kid? We don't know how good that kid is, Dana. Because who's he fought? It just gives me the shits, man. But hey, Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira was up next. I myself personally had Arman winning this fight as well. And he did. Obviously, I think he won 30-27. I don't know why they called it split decision. I think he won all 3 rounds. Yeah, no, what else is there to say for this one, really? Arman looked fantastic. Those ground and pound elbows were brutal as well. He's great on the ground, Arman. Give him the title shot. Let him wait for the title shot. It's on him now. It's not on Islam. It's honestly, in my opinion, after Islam beats Poirier, it's on Arman. It's on Arman's terms and conditions. Because he's the future. He really is. He's the future of the UFC. Him and Ilia Topuria are the guys now. Yeah, and that win over Oliveira speaks volume, considering Oliveira's resume as well. Like, his last fights were crazy. Obviously, Dariush, Islam, which was a loss, but still, a guy like Islam. Poirier and Gaethje and Chandler, like, they are the best guys in the division. And Oliveira ran through him, but Tsarukyan's up next, guys. He is. Yeah, if I was Oliveira as well, the Gamrot fight, Gamrot's in the top 5 now, but again, Gamrot's last win at 299 was against Rafi Dos Nachos, which doesn't really speak as much volume as it did a couple years ago. He's not as good as people say he is, Dos Anjos, either. So, yeah, there's that. I guess that's where Oliveira will go next. Oh, it's Oliveira as well, so he's gonna fight a top guy. I don't see him holding the belt again, though, so sorry to all you Oliveira cucks out there. It's just the way it is, the way of the world, the future is now. Alright, the fight of the night. Max Holloway walked away with 600 grand because of this one, boys. Max versus Justin Gaethje. Holy shit. What an overhand. I was at a loss for words. I was the only one. I watched this with 5 of my closest friends. I was the only person there that had Holloway to win. I had it by decision. I thought it would be Holloway domination right through. And it honestly was. It was just that knockout at the last second was like... It honestly made me reevaluate my place in the world. Just because I booked Holloway, but I was still like, holy shit. Wow. There are bitches doing that to other people out there, like... Where do I stand? I've done Muay Thai for a while now, guys, but still, I don't see myself doing that to anyone in the world, ever. Yeah, there's levels to this. Regardless of whether Gaethje's eyes were cooked like KFC, trust, word up to bedtime, his peripheral vision would have been absolutely destroyed, but still, I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. Yeah, Holloway looked fantastic. I'd probably rank this as Holloway's second best performance ever. Obviously, the Cater fight still goes number 1, but I would put this above the Ortega fight. I would put this above the 2 Aldo fights. Even the Frankie Edgar performance as well. Like, yeah, great work from Holloway. He looked very crisp. Give him the shot against Ilya now. Ilya was pissing his pants. Yeah, no, honestly, Ilya was pissing his pants, and I do now see an outcome where Holloway might win that fight. If you would have said that Ilya versus Holloway was next up when Ilya first won the belt, I would have gone, well, that's easy work for Ilya, and Holloway is my second favorite fighter of all time. So, yeah, it's great that I've reconsidered that, and it's great for Holloway, because I'm sure now Holloway feels more confident after seeing what Ilya's face looked like. More importantly, what Gaethje's face looked like after their fight. But yeah, no, great work for Holloway. Give him the Ilya fight. If I was Gaethje, I'd take more time off than needed. You really, really, really should take some time off, buddy. I think you only have 1 fight left in you. Like you said, you had another run at the title incoming, and then you wanted to call it a day. So maybe you have one last scrap against a guy like Dan Hooker, who's always game. Wait till Dan recovers from his broken arm. And then, yeah, get going again. I will miss you, though, in the octagon, Gaethje. I'm sure I speak for the vast majority. I just don't want to see you get hurt anymore. I really don't. Um, he's taken too much damage. He's literally got a tattoo on his ribs that says death before dishonor. And that says exactly how much you needed to say, right? That speaks complete and utter volume. There's nothing else really required to say with that one. Because he literally wants to die in there. I was watching a video the other day about how when Herb Dean stopped his fights with Eddie and Dustin, Gaethje was looking at him like, "Oh man, you dickhead, what are you doing stopping that fight? I'm still alive, man. Like you can't stop that fight." Duh. He was gonna die in the octagon if he kept fighting. Eddie floored him. Dustin floored him. You can't let that guy continue fighting. He's definitely got CTE. Call him Nam Fan the way he's got CTE. Please hang it up after one more fight. Let it be Dan Hooker because that'd still be a scrap. In my opinion, Gaethje is a Hall of Famer just because he's Justin Gaethje. Like, that fight against Chandler, the Fiziev fight, the James Vick knockout, the Edson... never mind. The Tony Ferguson win. Yeah, all those things, they build up Gaethje's legacy. He's obviously never fought a guy outside of the top 10. He's lost to Edson Barboza as well. You know when that happened when Edson Barboza double spinning wheel kicked him. Double two-touch spinning wheel kicked him, sorry. Yeah, absolutely floored him. Edson Barboza went on to be the world champion of every division. That definitely happened. Definitely wasn't the other way around. And Gaethje knocked out Edson Barboza. God no, I don't remember that. I remember it clearly being an Edson Barboza knockout. But yeah, no, he's built up his legacy enough, and you need one more fight before you can call it a day. And I'd love to see a Gaethje Dan Hooker fight, to be honest. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about that one. Great win for Max Holloway, of course. I'd love to see him fight Ilya. I'd love to see Gaethje fight Hooker. Alright, co-main event, women's strawweight title. Zhang Magnum Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. Yeah, honestly, I think this fight surprised a lot of people. I think it should have been stopped after the choke where Herzog was really contemplating. You could tell Xiaonan was clearly out. Yeah, but she maintained pace. She dropped Weili. Like, that was pretty impressive, right, guys? She dropped Zhang Weili. Yeah, no, but it was I think I speak for the majority when I say we all knew Weili was retaining this belt, but I am surprised it went to decision. I did have Weili via sub. I had an early sub for Weili as well. So that's quite good. I'm glad we got a fight out of it, and it honestly wasn't a bad fight. I'm not complaining too much. I didn't need to take a piss during this fight or a nap. My eyes didn't get tired, so great work from both of these guys. For Weili, I'd love to see you fight Alexa Grasso. I think you're deserving of that fight. After you fight Tatiana Suarez, obviously. Then please fight the winner of Grasso versus Shevchenko. I think it'll be Shevchenko. I don't see her beating Shevchenko. I do see her beating Alexa Grasso, though. Mommy Alexa Grasso. But still, yeah, do your thing. Beat Tatiana Suarez. I don't see Suarez with a belt, so don't worry about that. Then go up, fight the winner of Grasso versus Shevchenko. You should be number one pound for pound rank after that win at 300 as well, so that's great. I love Weili, honestly, man. She's fantastic. Very proud of her. Keep marching forward. She's so wholesome. She's the most wholesome fighter in the world right now. I watched the clip the other day where she kept going up to Alex Beheda and saying Shama, like that shit made me laugh so hard. She's honestly, in my opinion, the second greatest female fighter of all time. She could honestly beat Amanda Nunes in that aspect as well if she keeps going on a tear. If she does become double champ and maintain those two belts. Amanda Nunes' double champ rank does not count. She was a featherweight women's champion. She beat Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg looked like she was dead. Yeah, look, there's all these considerations you got to consider, like you got to take into account. But hey, great win for Weili. For Xiaonan next, yeah, no, I think it's pretty easy. It'd definitely be Verna Jandiroba. I would say Jessica Andrade after that Jessica Andrade win, But you've also got to consider the fact that Jessica Andrade and Yan Jianan have fought last year. So, yeah, I mean, you got to really give it to Virna Jandiroba now, don't you guys? And if Virna Jandiroba wins, that's another one you got to consider now for a title shot. Um, yeah, I'd hate to see Jandiroba as a champion, though, because she's unpredictable. Like, even in her facial expressions, you never quite know which way she's looking. Um, there's all this, and she can really scrap. Like, I think she honestly confuses her opponents as well because she's looking one way, her opponent's looking in the same direction. All of a sudden, you catch a counter left. Boom. Anyways, main event time between the glorious king Alex Pereira. First of all, I'd just like to make it clear, I'm not an Alex Pereira meat rider. I just idolize everything he says, but I'm not a meat rider. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Sweet Dreams, the dog. He's a dog, though, for real. Hill. Yeah, obviously, when Pereira was walking out doing his arrow thing, Hill caught the arrow, broke it over his knee, then he caught a left hook. I would like to say, though, perfectly executed tape kick to the penis from Jamal Hill before Alex Pereira finished him. You know, of course, there was a mutual sign of respect after that one when Pereira shook away Herb Dean and said, no, that one was all good. Very good kick to the penis, Jamal. Dapped him up, hit him with the left. What can you do about it? I obviously had Pereira winning this fight. I'm not an imbecile. Jamal Hill was coming off way too quickly off that Achilles injury. Yeah, he was never going to win, and he came out on his left foot as well. He came out left foot dominant, which was really surprising. I honestly think the fight would have gone longer if he did otherwise. Pereira, though, does struggle against southpaw, so I could see where Jamal Hill was coming from. Pereira looked great. He's a world champion. If he does go up to heavyweight, I don't see him beating either Jones or Aspinall. If he wants to fight Ankalaev, let the man fight Ankalaev. Yeah, I think Ankalaev would just wet blanket him anyways. But for Jamal Hill, I guess you could probably fight Yuri. That'd be interesting. Maybe. Yeah, Yuri. If Yuri wants to fight Ankalaev for an interim title, if Pereira goes up, that's also understandable. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. This fight ended quicker than I expected. Obviously, Pereira looked a lot more comfortable. You saw him backstage dancing. Polonio Cruz was filming him dancing to this Brazo music. And I'm glad now he's found his footing in MMA. For a while, you could definitely tell Pereira was uncomfortable in the octagon. I think tonight, now I'm recording this on Tuesday, Sunday night was the first time he's properly looked comfortable in the octagon. Yeah, I can see just positive things for Poatan in the future, regardless of whether he loses to Aspinall or Jones. I do see him just steamrolling through the light heavyweight division, everyone except Ankalaev, to be honest with you. I think Ankalaev wet blankets him unless Pereira counters him early. Yeah. At the end of the card, in my personal opinion, like I said, Max Holloway definitely should have got Performance of the Night, which was understandable. He ended up getting it. I honestly also would have given Performance of the Night to Diego Lopez. Yuri ended up getting Performance of the Night as well. What does Yuri Prochazka need $300,000 for? Is he just going to buy another katana? Maybe he will get that, cabin in the woods like he's always fantasized about. I would not have, obviously he deserved it, but that's the last person on the card I'd give $300,000 to, just because I genuinely don't know what he's going to do with that money. Fight of the night in my decision, out of my decision, also would have gone to Yuri versus Rakic. That would have been $600,000 for Yuri, so either way, somebody would have been getting $600,000. I'm very glad they didn't give that fight of the night to Yuri versus Rakic, because again, I think Dana realized that Yuri did not need $600,000. Yeah, obviously Holloway versus Gaethje was the smart decision. Holloway has a family, and he definitely deserved extra money. Performance of the night, he would have got a minimum $300,000. Giving him the $600,000 in total plus contract wages, like I said, was smart. You could have also, another guy you honestly could have given it to was Aljamain, but they probably wouldn't have. Again, maybe even Diego Lopez, Performance of the Night. yeah, that maybe even Kayla Harrison as well, guys. The fight card was just fantastic. There were so many outcomes going into it, but I think everybody that did get the W proved themselves to be the top of the sport. Um, yeah, and I'm so glad we're around for UFC 300. You know, it only happens every so often, guys. Like Jim Miller was saying as well, being on 100, 200, and 300, like, you've got to have crazy longevity for that stuff. And yeah, it only happens every so often. I'm glad we got to witness it. Um, Obviously, the fight night next isn't the greatest fight card in the world, Nicolau versus Perez. So I'm glad we got a banger before that. And then again, UFC 301 on the 5th of May in my time is obviously not the greatest card ever. So, yeah. With all that being considered, guys, I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for stopping by. This is just the start of my YouTube journey, I guess. So here's to many more. Um, yeah, peace out. And remember, don't go down, get down, people. Woo!